The plan was brilliant in its conception, but failed catastrophically in its execution. Putin made his move anyway. Welcome back to The Sun's Battle Plans Exposed with me, Philip Ingram. Now today we tell the story of a battle that lasted barely 36 hours, but decided the fate of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. And it decided perhaps the entire course of the war. The battle we explore is the desperate two-day fight for Antonov Airport, also known as Hostomel Airport. Why has it got two different names? Antonov Airport because it's the site of where the world's largest cargo aircraft, made by the Antonov Aircraft Company, was based. Hostomel is the civilian name that's with it. It's the same airport. And it's just 6 miles northwest of Kyiv. Russia's invasion plan in February 2022 was simple and ruthless, and depended entirely on speed. And from a planning perspective, and I'm a former military planner, it was exactly what was needed to try and disrupt the political center of Kyiv with intelligence and special forces troops, to try and disrupt with intelligence forces and special forces the elements of the government in Kyiv, and to remove them from the decision-making process, to put an air mobile attack using helicopters into Antonov International Airport to create a bridgehead, to then fill that bridgehead with airborne forces either parachuting in or flying in through large transport aircraft, securing that bridgehead, allowing it to be expanded and start to move patrols into the city to link up with the intelligence and special forces that will have captured the Ukrainian government by that stage. And then to maintain that bridgehead for Russian land forces to come down from the north and to try and link up with the airport. The Russian plan for Kyiv's rapid fall didn't begin with a missile. It began quietly with Russian intelligence operatives already inside the Ukrainian capital. Russia's FSB and GRU military intelligence had cultivated extensive secret networks of agents, collaborators, and illegals, deep cover spies within Ukraine. Their task on February the 24th was to act as a fifth column, to disrupt before the main assault, before the air mobile assault came into the airfield. They were meant to conduct sabotage, confusing Ukrainian officials, blocking key roads, cutting communications, and identifying and marking government buildings. They failed. Western intelligence had pre-warned the Ukrainians. Ukrainian intelligence and special forces had managed to capture and deny the freedom of movement of the Russian intelligence services and their special forces. Crucially, once the air mobile element of the Russian airborne forces, their VDV, had captured Antonov airfield, these operatives were also intended to seize government infrastructure, to capture or assassinate the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, and to prepare for the installation of a pro-Russian regime, a puppet government, as people refer to it. The Russian plan was built on the fatally flawed intelligence that the Ukrainian government would collapse and the people would quickly capitulate, and to welcome the Russian forces not as invaders but as friends. They fundamentally underestimated Ukraine's will to fight. Fortunately for Kyiv, Western intelligence had specifically warned President Zelensky and military staff of the Russian plan, including the air assault on Antonov Airport. The Ukrainians had their regional reserve forces deployed around Antonov Airfield, but they also had elements of special forces there. This forewarning allowed Ukrainian counterintelligence and police forces to conduct raids in the days leading up to the invasion, disrupting dozens of sabotage cells and arresting potential collaborators, severely crippling the ghost forces tasked with trying to paralyze the city. But Putin made his move anyway. The decisive opening move of the invasion was launched on the morning of February the 24th. A helicopter armada around 9:30 a.m., a massive formation of 20 to 34 Russian helicopters comprising of Mi-8 transports carrying an initial force of around 200 to 300 VDV, airborne paratroopers, heavily escorted by Ka-52 Alligator and Mi-24 attack helicopters. They took off from Belarus. These elite troops, primarily from the 31st Guards Air Assault Brigade, flew low over the Dnieper River to avoid radar. The mission was to land, secure the 3.5-kilometer runway, and prepare it for follow-on airlifts that would ferry in thousands of troops and heavy equipment. Following on closely behind the helicopter-landed forces were further follow-on VDV airborne forces coming in by aircraft, hundreds of them. Those aircraft never landed. 2 of them, we believe, were shot down. The rest dispersed back to Belarus and to Russia. The bridgehead was never properly established. The airport's local defence consisted of a relatively small garrison of about 300 Ukrainian National Guardsmen, many of them conscripts, equipped mainly with small arms and a few man-pads, that's man-portable air defence systems. But despite the overwhelming odds, the defenders were ready. They had been reinforced covertly by elements of Ukrainian special forces, and as the Russian helicopters approached, they opened fire. The fierce immediate resistance managed to shoot down at least 2 Russian helicopters, including one Ka-52. But the initial assault was too overwhelming. The superior numbers of the Russian VDV forced the lightly armed guardsmen to retreat after a short and intense firefight. By mid-afternoon, the Russian paratroopers had secured the airfield's perimeter and began preparing for the arrival of the massive Ilyushin IL-76 strategic airlifters. The moment the Russian flag was raised at Antonov airport, Russia believed its blitzkrieg was back on track. Ukraine knew the true fight was just beginning. Ukrainian commanders, including the then Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny, understood that losing the airport was secondary to ensuring it was unusable. They immediately ordered the use of artillery, and specifically the 72nd Mechanized Brigade's guns to bombard the runway. The shelling was aimed precisely at disabling the landing strip, creating craters and scattering burning debris to prevent any large transport aircraft from landing safely. Simultaneously, a powerful ground assault counterattack was mobilized. The elite Ukrainian air assault forces, their VDV, and elements of the 4th Rapid Reaction Brigade of the National Guard were rushed towards Hostomel, Antonov airport. The result was a brutal all-night fight. Ukrainian forces managed to temporarily evict the Russian paratroopers from the runway and from the surrounding buildings. The fighting was intense, forcing the lightly equipped Russian airborne forces to withdraw to the nearby town of Hostomel and its surrounding woods. This counterattack, coupled with the artillery bombardment, achieved the decisive strategic objective. The runway was rendered unusable, and when the second wave of Russian Ilyushin 76 transports carrying in hundreds of fresh troops and heavy equipment approached the Ukrainian airspace, they were forced to abort their landings and turn back, some mid-flight. And it was reported at least 1 was shot down, possibly 2, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of elite Russian troops. The air bridge was broken. The troops that were left surrounding the airfield were logistically very light indeed and couldn't sustain operations for much longer. By the morning of February the 25th, however, the Russians had reinforced from the ground and recaptured the airport. But their victory was hollow. The runway remained crippled and the strategic window for a lightning strike on Kyiv had closed. The link-up from the north by ground forces was stalled by further Ukrainian resistance, making Hostomel an airport too far. As the Russian ground forces tried to get in from the north, the small elements had managed to get through to reinforce, but Ukrainian light forces struck into the forward edge of the Russian convoys that were coming down, disabling them and blocking them on the roads. They struck into the ends of the Russian convoys, stopping them from retreating, and then hit them in the middle to cause maximum disruption, fixing them on the roads. We have to remember, in February, the roads that were coming down into Kyiv, off those roads, the mud would have stopped any vehicle from moving anywhere. In the subsequent fighting and shelling, the world's largest airplane, the Antonov AN-225, the Mriya, or Dream, which was housed in a hangar at the airport, was destroyed. The loss of the Mriya, a unique engineering marvel and a profound symbol of Ukrainian national pride, sent a wave of shock across the country and around the world, yet it quickly became a powerful rallying cry. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated that Russia may have destroyed our Mriya but they will never be able to destroy our dream of a strong, free and democratic European state. This image, the Mriya destroyed, the runway crippled, cemented the strategic reality of the battle. The Russian command had assumed the airport was an airport too far for Ukraine to successfully defend. But the tenacity and quick thinking of the defenders saved Kyiv, forcing Russia into a protracted war of attrition it was not prepared to fight, and certainly did not anticipate to be fighting some 4 years on. So join us next time for the Sun Battle Plans Exposed. To be updated, subscribe to our channel, hit like, share it with your friends, and if you've got anything you want us to look at, put it in the comments below and we'll see what we can do. Thank you. Goodbye.